What is happening everyone, Gareth the Master 974 back again today doing yet another hammer tutorial. This time around a recommendation by Nathan, which is to cover how to make the electric field seen in Portal Still Alive in Portal 1. So yeah, let's just get right into it without wasting too much of your time, because this might be a long one. So one of the prerequisites I would say is to have the Portal Still Alive mod on PC, that way you can get the effects block field material, which is the Portal Still Alive hard light bridge texture. But yeah, that's just going to be for a glow effect, which you would want to include if you're going to make it sort of like Portal Still Alive. But you don't have to have it. It just means this stuff that you're seeing over here, you're not going to have to worry about. So I'm just going to go over here somewhere, and I'm going to make a 32 by... how much is it actually? Just double check the boundaries. 32 by 256. Just out of the way of the one that I've already, got. And I'm going to have to make sure it's in line with the other block, which is just down here. So if I do something like that, then yeah, it says it's at 16 height. So that's good. So if I select that, then this is going to be 416 by 32, so just get that into place as well. So make sure it's all lined up perfectly, because we're going to be doing some vertex manipulation on these blocks to make them angled, but also have a little bit of a lip at the inner ledge. So there's going to be an 8 unit gap where you can see where the blue sprite is, or the blue sort of effect that I just showed you. That's where that is. So if I start with this bottom edge right here, then we can see if we go right up close, what I'm going to have to do is shift that. No, I said, I hate it when it does that. It selects something different than what you want, but you want to do something like that to get it into place, and then shift that in like so. But that fucks up the brush, and that's going to give you an error. So what you want to do after that is just shift this one in so it's in line like so. And voila, that's one corner of the brush done. And for the other edge, we do the same thing. We shift the inner vertices in first, or maybe one of the outer vertices out. Then we compare that to what we have over here. We don't do that, we do this. We shift it in over this way, or something. Apparently, it's not doing what I want it to. Just get both of them over there. And then that one comes down, so it's in line with that. And then this one goes up, so it's in line with that. So yeah, if you do it like the way I'm doing it, then it should perfectly match up at the corners, and there shouldn't be any issues. So I'm just going to do the same thing for these. You know what, fuck it. You know what, I'm not going to waste your time. Just shift, drag, duplicate, and then rotate 180 degrees, and it should fit perfectly fine. Then select everything, texture, 0, 0, good enough for me. So the outside, we're going to texture with plaster texture from Portal. So you're going to see some Zen Skybox textures here, so just don't mind that. And it's this one. And if we select that, we can go bottom, or is it top? I think top works well. If you compare it to this, then yeah, you can see there's a little bit of the darker plastic coming through. And if we compare it to that, then yeah, you can see some of the darker plastic is coming through. So that's cool. And then we're going to select the 8 unit sort of wide gap that we created by doing the vertex manipulation. That is going to have signage hazards. And you might get this where, it's like got the wrong rotation. So just 90-degree rotation, it's up, and because of the way we've done it as well, it should all look seamless. So yeah, that looks good. And the inner texture, which is just here, is a truss. So I'm just going to grab that right now and texture the inside here. And I'm just probably, I'm going to have to rotate it 90 degrees. So just rotate that. And yeah, top, bottom, and that doesn't matter, does it? 0 it out. So that should be perfectly fine the way that is. So that serves as the base, but we still have all of this going on in here, and it looks really complex, but it really isn't that bad. So if I select underneath, then rather if I select underneath as a solid, You can see this is 8 units high, and it's the same for the ends, if you will. So I'm going to just node draw this up, and I'm going to create a 64 unit wide, but the length of the inside gap, and do that on both sides like so, and that should leave a 64 unit gap in the middle, which it does. And this one's only going to be 4 units high, so I'm just going to have to decrease the grid size, push that down a little bit and go like that. So that is the basis of the bottom of the field here, or the, you know, the electricity field that we're creating. So it's got metal wall BTS 005 as the texture, and you can set that for the top face and the side faces that get exposed, and the bottom face that is here is metal wall 060A. So I'm just going to select that, and I think that looks okay. I mean, I don't think we need to centralize it, but again, we can just compare it to this, and it doesn't seem to be centralized. Again, we're not making it perfect, so you don't need to do it exactly the way I'm doing it, but I think that looks okay, so I'm going to go with it. And the top brush is only 4 units deep, and I'm just going to get the node draw texture again, and again I'm just going to select the entirety of the inside of this, 192 by 384, 4 units deep, and it is metal grate 013A2. I don't think we need to do anything too special. Now I should have left the grate till last, because there's actually one more thing I need to add, which are these like train tracks. So they're 4 units deep, but they're 16 wide and 384 long. So if I just node draw it up, then we're going to make it 8 units, I believe, from the inside. So that's like the inside, so we're going to go down here, and that's 384. And then I'm going to shift drag this until it's 8 units from the other edge, which should be there. So if I select these 2 brushes, they should be 48 in length. So I may as well texture these now, because these are the truss texture that we would have just used. And again, we can just like Alt right click to select the neighboring face and apply the texture to it, so that way it looks perfectly fine. And then if we select both of those, we can shift drag across, so it's in exactly the same place but on the other side on this. And that's pretty much looking like the base of that. So very good, isn't it? So I'm going to move on to the Funk brush next. So I'm just very quickly going to reselect the node draw texture. It's a very inefficient way of doing it. And I'm going to start down here, and we're going to do the same sort of shit that we did earlier. For the inside gap, we're going to make it only 1 unit thick, like so. Select, and then brush. That way it keeps the 1 unit thickness. We don't have to, you know, keep adjusting the height of the brushes after the fact or whatever. So just occupy that 8 unit gap, as you see I'm trying to do there. And what we're going to do is vertex manipulate each of these brushes like we did with the center, well, you know, the bare base, if you will. I'm not being very clear, it's because my mind's distracted, but you know, it is what it is. At the end of the day, all you really got to do is follow along with what I am doing, and it should go perfectly fine for you without issues. Or if you do shit like that, then you can rectify the issue. Sometimes, I don't know why, but that happens. I just go to shift a vertex and it selects something completely different, and it's just annoying as hell. And because I'm going to be Mr. Efficient, I'm going to try and select all of these brushes, the ones we just created, by the way. And where the hell is this? Is that it? I think I just selected it. Did I? No, I'm not selecting the right fucking brushes. Right. I don't know where that one is. It's not selecting it. I don't know. Oh, I think I just selected that one. Yeah, this is also going to be a pain because we did it the way that we did it. Yeah, it's going to make selecting those brushes a pain. But as you can see, we've got 4 and it's 1 unit thick. So you can go Control T, tie it to a Funk brush. and I'll get to the settings in just a moment. And actually what I should do is try to select that and go into objects, excuse me. And what we're going to do is go to tools, transform, and we're going to move it about 0.09 units in the Z direction, so it moves upwards just a tad little bit, so it's just above, you know, the base that we would have just used. And we're going to use the effect that I told you about earlier, the block field. And as you can see, it doesn't quite look right, so we're going to have to do some texture shifting, I believe. So if we go bottom and then increase this, we need to increase it by about 16, so it should be about 144, I would imagine, if my mathematics is correct, which it usually is. Rotate these 90 degrees, and again the same situation, 90 rotation. We're going to add 16 to minus 128. So that should be 112. Same here, 160. So that's going to be another 144 job. And then this one, bottom, and add on to 128. So that should be positive 144. So that should look pretty decent. Again, it might not look perfect, but it is what it is. That's the basis of the glow effect. And if we just take a look at the glow effect, we can actually Alt-Enter to view the properties. The dark black name, it means that something else is called this, so we want to call it something different. So I'll just copy and paste the settings over because I'm lazy. And I'm going to call it something like Zapper, what do they call it? Glow. Whatever. But the important settings are that the render mode is set to color, and the FX amount is set to 0, and there's no flags we need to worry about, so no changes on that front. And now what we get to do is deactivate the Func brush, so we can just go into auto, brush entities, turn that off, select all of this, Control T to a Func detail, then turn everything back on, then select this. Now it's going to be slightly ass because I did put the effect brush in place, but we're just going to use this as a reference, go up, and we're going to rotate this around 180 degrees and make sure that is a-okay. And that's pretty much the basis of the shock field in place. If I select it like that, it's perfectly 256 high, 256 wide, and 448 long, so that's good. And it's worth noting as well, pretty much every single electric shock field in Portal Still Alive is different, so this is just a basis. So yeah, you don't have to follow this exactly. But let's go on to this trigger hurt next. And you might have noticed as well, the Luxor scale is kind of different as well, dependent on which version you're looking at. So that's got like a Luxor scale of 4, so that means the shadows are going to look pretty damn good on it. You don't have to do that if you don't want to though. So I'm just going to leave it as default, but now we've got a trigger hurt, which is going to not exceed this 8 unit gap that we created, but it is certainly going to go the width of the entire thing. So we're just going to Control T this, go to a trigger hurt, and I'm just going to call this something like Zapper Hurt. Oh wait, it's already called Zapper Hurt, isn't it? 1. Fuck it, make it unique. And I think we want the start disabled is yes. We want to do 900 damage in one go, and we want it to be energy beam damage as well. Just compare the settings. Yep, that's pretty much identical, and we only want it to affect clients. And there's going to be some outputs on this, but we'll get to outputs pretty much at the end. Just get all the entities put into place first. So there's a lot more stuff going on over here. And so some of the things that don't really all that matter, matter that much. We can put an env cube map down somewhere in the middle. Again, its settings are pretty much default, so you don't need to worry about that too much. We just stick that in the middle. We're going to create a light as well, and that's going to go pretty much slap bang in the middle. So that's going to go there, but we're going to give this a name. So I'm going to call it something like Zapper Light 1 to make it unique. And if you just give me a moment, I'm going to load up my sort of documents I made, a document I made with all of the stuff already done beforehand. So for the LDR light, we want 85, 85, 255, and 70. Whereas for brightness HDR, we actually want 121, 121, 255, and 120. We want the appearance to be fluorescent flicker, which is just that one. And we want a constant of 200,000. And the flag, we want it to be initially dark. So that's the light done. And I don't think there's any outputs we need to worry about there. It's only inputs for the light. So that's not the end of the world. And let's get to the sounds next. I'll leave the laser beams until a little later. But these three are going to be centered but kind of towards the bottom. And I'm just going to be efficient and shift drag these up and create another one. I'm going to put that to one side, maybe move that a little bit forward actually, or backwards, or however you want to look at it. So the bottom one, if I can actually do the right thing, let's call it Zapper Sound 1-1 because we have to do that. And again, I'm just looking at my things. So first sound, we're going to go to Raw Game Sounds and we're going to search for the helicopter, and we want a heli charge up, which sounds like this. Should have played the sound right there. We want the start volume to be at 10, and we want the maximum distance to be quite large. It's going to be 17,205, which is quite a lot, let's face it. And under flags, we want start silent and is not looped, so that's good. Just to give you some perspective, that is how much area this is going to cover. It's pretty much the entire map, the entire game space. So it doesn't really matter where you are, you're going to hear this sound. So let's move on to sound 2, which I have to call Zapper Sound 2-1. And this sound is Ambient Machines, Electric Machines. So I would just search for electric. It's going to be this one. The maximum distance this time around is 19,682. And again, it only starts silent, I believe, this time around for sound 2, because this is a looped sound, so we want it to loop. And then last but not least, again, flags, in this case, start silent is not looped. But this is Zapper Sound 3-1, because I've called it the wrong thing. I've not gotten rid of the previous Zapper, but that helps me out actually. And it's Ambient Levels Labs. Yeah, Ambient Levels Labs Electric Explosion 5, which sounds like this. We want the maximum distance to be relatively short this time around, only 8,552 this time around. And that's pretty much all we need to do there. There's one more sound that we need to deal with, and this is when the player dies to the Zapper. So I'm going to call this Zapper Death Sounds. And in this case, it is... that's actually handled slightly different. I believe it's a game sound. And it's Ambient Electrical Zap 6, is it? Zap 6. Yeah, I think it's this one. Sounds about right. I think that's all we need to do here, though. So it's just a single sound. And again, just for confirmation purposes, I can go over here. And yet the sound is pretty much exactly the same. And the flags are exactly the same. So we don't need to do anything more with that sound. Let's go on to an Spark entity next, because that's going to be the sparks that's going to play when the player dies to a electric death field. So let's place that near the sound, maybe ever slightly above it or below it, wherever. It doesn't really matter, I don't think, but let's put it about there. I don't think we have any flags to worry about, so you don't need to worry about that. We're going to call it Zapper Death Spark, And what do we want? Well, we want the magnitude to be huge, and we want the trail length to be long, and that's pretty much all there is to it. In that sense, I'll just save the map. Remember to periodically save your progress. Alright, we're getting in the home stretch, so it's just add in an env fade next. I'm going to put it down over here. Again, the placement of this is completely arbitrary. You can put it anywhere you want. And I just need to figure out, okay, so we're going to call this Zapper Death Fade. So this is a fade that's going to happen when the player dies. We want the duration to be 0.4, I believe, so just 0.4. And we want the color to be 217, 217, 255. And then under flags, we want it to fade 1. Okay. Now let's move on to the env beams, the actual interesting part, the visual effect, shall we say, of this. Did I just put one down? Yeah, I did. Where is it? Welp, where did it go? It's there, but I'm not seeing it. Oh, it's gone up, that's why. I don't know why that happens. Yeah, you can see it's quite large in Hammer++, which is what I'm using, and I do recommend using Hammer++, because it makes your life a lot easier. But yeah, it's encapsulated into a, you know, a box of 512 by 512. That's what happened there. So if I go under the properties, I'm going to call this Zapper Beam, because why not? I actually have to figure out where I've put the settings for this. Okay, it's there. So we're going to change the color to 113, 113, and 255. We're going to want a life of 0.1 seconds, so just change that right away. We want noise of 255, so it's a bit sporadic, as you can see. And we want blue light, so give me a moment, I believe it's this one, blue light 1 as the texture. And then we want to strike at 0.1 as well. So as you can see, it's already looking like the electric field laser beam. And so what we're going to have under flags is toggle, random strike, and then start and end sparks. So that is that. And one thing to keep in mind as well, it would be nice if the env beam is about 128 units inside of the field. So if I go like this, then that distance should be about 128 from the edge into the center of the beam. So that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to do is shift drag this over to the other side, because this is kind of a long field. We're going to need 2 of these. And if I just go like this again, it's only to make sure that the laser is about 128 units inside, and that is 128 units inside as well. So the positioning of that is pretty much perfect. Yeah, that is the one on the other side, I believe. So that's inside just an ever slightly small amount. So that doesn't really matter. Again, we're not going for pixel perfect precision here. And so let's move on to some of the last things that we're going to have here. And so I'm going to have a math remap. This is for the effect, by the way. So if you don't have the texture, don't worry about it. This is all visual at this point. And it is a little complex, let's put it that way. It's not too bad if you know what you're doing. So we're going to have a remap. And I'm going to call this Zapper Remap, if I can spell properly. And we're going to have a minimum valid value of 16 and a maximum value of 32 and an output value of max at 255. And then there is going to be an output. So I'm going to do this now. It's on, sorry, out value, excuse me. Out value of the glow sprite, and it's the alpha. So whatever value this has, it's going to be outputted to our Funk Brushes alpha, and then make it fade in and then fade out based off of the settings within this math remap, but we're going to uncheck clamp output to output range, but we're going to ignore out of range input values. That's what we want in that situation. And what we're going to do is immediately after this, we're going to have a point proximity sensor. So all of these entities are going to be really close together. As you can see, I'm doing it right now like that. And I'm going to call this something like Zapper sensor. And the sensor is going to be oriented so it is pointing in an upwards direction from the top down view. As you can see, it's pointing upwards. And we haven't made the target entity name yet. And what we can do is under outputs, do distance, the math remap that we just created, and in value. And I don't think there's anything that we need to do. So the last thing we need to do is create a small, and I mean like small no draw brush just ahead of this proximity sensor. So let me just create that right now. It is a func door. I'm going to call it Zapper door. And what's nice about this is you get a nice big arrow in Hammer++ telling you which direction it's going in. And one thing I don't realize is that it's actually in the 3D view as well. You can kind of just see it there poking out of the no draw block. So in this func door, we've got a speed of 10. We've got a delay of -1. We have an origin that is about 32 units ahead of the door here. So can I put it down to 8? Yes, that's 8, 16, 24, 32. That's right around there. Just a quick little edit, guys. It turns out you don't need to change the origin of the func door entity. Just leave it where it is inside of this 16 by 16 no draw square. I just compared it to Still Alive 5, and it turns out that, yeah, it's inside of the brush. So yeah, don't change the origin, just keep it in the center like here, and then the glow effect should work perfectly fine. Then the move direction is going to be pointing upwards as well in that direction. So you see the arrows changed. And in this case, we're going to have outputs. And so on fully closed, we want !self to set speed of 10. And on fully open, we want !self again to set speed of 50. And under flags, we want non-solid to player, passable, toggle, and door silent. That's all of them. And then back to the proximity sensor, we want the target entity name to be the Zapper door that we just created. So that should be everything here linked together. So the alpha of the func brush is dependent on the math remap, and the math remap depends on the sensor, and the sensor is sensing the door, and the door's going to open and close, and the distance that the door is from the sensor is going to affect the alpha from 0 to 255 of the func brush. So I believe all we need to do now is add outputs to pretty much everything that needs outputs. So let's go back to the trigger hertz, because there's some outputs here that we need to add. And so we're going to say on hurt player, we want our Zapper def spark to spark once. We want on hurt player, we want our Zapper def spark sound to play sounds. Excuse me if I'm being a little silent, I'm just trying to figure out where everything is. Trying to read my notes at the same time. And we also want our def fade to fade as well. And again, make sure it's set to clients only, which it is. So those are the outputs on the trigger hertz. And so I believe now all we need is to string it all together with a logic timer, which I'm going to put right outside of the front here and very much above everything else, so you can see it in view, hopefully. And I'm going to call this Zapper Timer 1 because of the convention. We're going to make it start disabled so it isn't enabled from the get-go. And we're going to have a refire interval of 9, so it's a fixed 9-second refire rate. And we're going to have a load of on-timer outputs. First off, we want our sound 1 in this case to play sound. We want on-timer of our funk door, which I might as well just select by doing that, to open. We're going to do on-timer, and this time we want sound 2-1 to volume of 10 after 2 seconds. Then on timer, we want our glow effect to turn. Oh wait, what's the glow? Oh great, I fucked it up. It's the light, I believe. Is it the light? Yeah, it's a zapper light. Yeah, zapper light to turn. Wait, the zapper effect. There's a zapper effect. Where's the zapper effect, dude? Where is it? Oh, it's the beam. I'm being a fucking dumbass. I'm so sorry, everyone. It's the beam that we need to turn on. I'm so sorry. I'm being a dumbass. Zapper beam turns on. Oh, sorry. Capitalizes T and capitalizes O. Turn on after 2. Excuse me. I thought I selected the right thing. So sorry for the fuck up there. I thought it was something that it wasn't. So now we want the trigger her to enable after 2. Then on timer, we want our light to turn on. See, yeah, that's where the light comes in. That's after 2 seconds. Then on timer, we want sound 2-1, volume to be at 0 after 6 seconds. Then on timer, zapper sound 3-1. To play sound after 6 seconds. We want on timer of our beam, I guess this is, to turn off, because that's the effect. That's what I called the effect. It's the beam that's to turn off after 6. Then on timer, we want our, trigger hurt to disable after 6. So it's no longer going to kill the player if the player touches it. We want our zapper light 1 to turn off after 6 seconds. And last but not least, on timer, we want our door here, zapper door, to close after 6 seconds. So if I've done everything correctly, what I can do now is hide the electric fields. So only this one is in play. And if I make a default map based off of this and find a way to trigger the logic timer, then you should see it works pretty much as in Portal Still Alive. And if you enter the field when the electricity is active, then you're going to die and a special fade is going to display itself. But for the most part, it's just going to go all over the place and zap you and hurt you and all that stuff. Now, there are some cosmetic things that you can go over, like overlay on the actual top of the model, which is used in the first electric field you see in Portal Still Alive. The signage from Portal Still Alive as well. There's one that's specific to Portal Still Alive, or danger, high voltage, like the Electric Six song, or even the default sort of scorch decal right outside where the zapper is. Again, that's all cosmetic stuff. If you want to do that, you can do. Just one last little thing. I guess I will go over that one decal at least. So if we go to browse, we can go to get out of the way, start menu. Go to Portal. We want aperture large. We're going to put it at the top around here, and I'm going to make it dead center on the origin, or there or thereabouts. And we're going to Control M to scale to about 0.4, I would say, in each of the axes, and then OK that. And then all we're going to do is move it out just a little bit, probably to about there or there maybe. I think that looks okay. So how much is that? About 4 units out of the center and dead center as well, and that is just a tad little bit above where the top brush is. So yeah, I'm gonna have to save and compile, make the map in question, make sure it all works. And if there's anything that I need to add or change, then I'll be doing a little addendum to the video. But if that's not the case, that is the electric field from Portal Still Alive in Portal 1. So thank you very much for watching. Please let me know what you think. Going back to sort of a long form explain everything because I wasn't too happy with the Breencast tutorial, but it is what it is. I hope you followed along and, you know, don't mind me making mistakes, but Portal with ray tracing is just around the corner at the time of this video upload, so you know what, I can't wait to play that. And you never know, there could be some tutorials about that too, so hope to see you for that, everyone. Take care out there, peace out, and see you next time for whatever I decide to do. Take care out there.